when you factor all those things, and really those were the only two paths. And if you didn't go ahead and do this move, then the correct move would have been, unfortunately, to take a look at trading Sorokin, because if you're not going to surround him with a team that can do it and that can get you ultimately to that cup, then that's the biggest trade chip that you have to cash in, and it almost becomes a must at that point. So I'm pleased with the direction that they went. I understand the expense to the farm system and the expense that it comes to the future, but I think given his age, given his pedigree, I think the deal and the trade will hold up quite well.
Randy, give me your thoughts on Bo Horvat. He was in your neck of the woods for quite some time.
Yeah, he was. Probably the thing that he that's my phone ringing. Somebody's going to get mad at me because I'm not answering it. He gives what Vancouver's needed so badly. Addition to that power play that was sorry. I don't know of any other better way of putting it. Gary, what's your words? Anemic comes to my mind. Awful, slow, predictable. He gave that power play new life. He gave Barzal a person that he can pass the puck to, who can blast it. He's probably your best pure sniper you now have on your team. And he's probably the best all-around player on your team until Barzal comes back. He adds eons to your offensive abilities. Him and Nelson can be good now.
As far as the top two centers go, the two-way game.
Yep, two-way game, which you so sorry needed, because at times, as I was talking to you about it, at times I was worrying that the Islanders did not have enough offense in their game, that they didn't have enough scoring support. Now Horvat fixes that up. In fact, he's carrying the team that you're playing better without Barzal. And I think it was Gary, that one of Gary's favorite sayings, isn't it, Gary? When a player goes down, it's up to the rest of the team, and the team seems to all pick up and play better. Was it you that used to tell the people that it's the team that you know who the real team is, right?
Yeah.
When their star goes down. And we found out this down.
I'm glad you listened to me after all these years, Randy.
Yeah, well, you're a lot better to listen to than Paul.
There we go. There we go. All right. Phil, pay no attention. This is normal. Speaking of stars, I'm going to stick with Randy on this one here. Did the Islanders acquire a star in Pierre Engvall?
Well, what they acquired is probably your fastest skater on your team. Now, I know you have Matthew Barzal, don't get me wrong, but he'll give Matthew Barzal a battle to the end. And did you notice that when Lou was interviewed, I don't know if you guys heard about the interview about the acquiring, he went over his speed over and over and over again.
Yes.
And he's the fastest player I've ever seen. And what
other than McDavid.
Well, yeah, other than McDavid. But what he did for Toronto when I was covering the Maple Leafs is he would give us absolute speed, and he'd score sure-handed goals because he'd grab the puck from one end and nobody could keep up with him. He just went in his room. And that's what he's going to do. And the other thing, I don't know if anyone knows about him, he can play all three forward guys.
Mm-hmm.
He can play all three forwards. He can play left, can play right, can play center. Are you going to bring Joe on? You can't have five.
No. Joe's taking the night off. We'll discuss that later.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But flexibility. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Phil, you living in Toronto right now. Give me your thoughts on Engvall.
I loved it. I love the trade. I love the player. I've watched him ever since he came up to the Leafs. His first goal was in the first game after Mike Babcock got fired. It was a shorthanded goal against the Coyotes, and I didn't really follow him much because I don't follow the Marlies. I knew he was part of the Marlies championship team that won the Calder Cup.
Yes.
But, I mean, the goal against Arizona was a beauty, and the speed was obvious, tremendous size. And, you know, I've just been watching him the past few years, and there have always been a couple guys in the Leafs where I said, if we could get a guy like this into our lineup that is, you know, bereft to a certain degree of speed, I wouldn't say necessarily of skill, but we certainly, and taking Beauvillier away from the group, the only thing it really took away was a little bit of speed and forecheck that you liked out of Bo, and Bo had ran his course, so you obviously wanted to replace that element. And this past summer, someone who I had circled from the Leafs as a potential target was Ilya Mikheyev. I was kind of disappointed that he wasn't a guy that we went after. He played on the same line with Engvall down there, in Toronto. And, when I was kind of looking at the Leafs cap picture after they're doing all these trades, I was trying to figure out, okay, which forward's being moved here? And I thought it would be Kerfoot. They needed to make space. And I think Kerfoot had run his course with the team, but I would assume that Kyle Dubas probably did not get a heck of a lot of interest in that player, just given his cap number, given the fact that he hasn't been particularly useful. So when I saw this trade go through, I was thrilled. Like Randy had mentioned, that first year that they brought him up, he mostly played center because they had brought him up as a center in the Marlies. They switched him from wing to center. It's something that he can do. As of late, as in the past year and a half, he was on a line with David Kampf, which is Toronto's shutdown line. So it's not like they've played run and gun kind of style. And if you're getting a guy who can score 15, 18 goals in the Leafs bottom six, I know he had 15 last year. This year he was pacing a bit more than that. He could carry the puck north to south. Like Randy mentioned, he's definitely faster than Barzal. I wouldn't, he doesn't have the same kind of edge work as him. You're not going to see him, dancing in the offensive zone the way Barzal does in the change of direction, but his north-south speed is some of the best in the NHL. And he's a player I really hope we could retain on a reasonable deal because, I hate going crazy with comparisons, but he makes me think a little bit of Carter Verhaeghe, right? Also a player, a lot of speed.
Yes.
He, spent an extensive amount of time in the minors, a little bit with the Islanders. I know that hurts.
Yep.
He played on that first cup team with Tampa, and he was on their fourth line, and you were always able to see the flashes with him there. It's just he was buried behind so many players in Tampa that he never really got the opportunity to break out. And then Florida scoops him up on the cheap and free agency, and all of a sudden you have a star player. So with, Tavares and Matthews up there, he was obviously never going to be a top six center. He plays mostly on the right wing, and they've got Marner and Nylander. There was really never any room for him to elevate, other than injury, of course, past the third line, which is where he played most of the last 2 years. And I think with the Islanders, he's going to have an opportunity to break out a little bit more. I'm not saying he's going to be Verhaeghe, but, just think about players who, given the opportunity, Michael Bunting in Toronto right now. I think it would be silly to look at his age and write him off as a fully developed piece because I think there's more there.
And Paul, to add on to what he said, what player did I tell you, nag you to death in free agency that the Islanders should get right away?
We had a lot of players there, Randy. I don't know who won.
No, the same one that the gentleman mentioned, the Russian, that's now playing in Vancouver. I told you that the Islanders should pick him up like first thing, and he's exactly right. And the player that's a good description that you can describe Engvall to is, I'm going to give you a name out of Calgary's history. I don't know if either one of you. His name is Paul Reinheim.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he's a Paul Reinheim player. Good penalty killer. Excellent. You'll love the kid. I guarantee you'll love the kid by the time he gets his contract done.
For Islander fans who are not familiar with Carter Verhaeghe, and again, not so much of a comparison, but more of a style. And yes, Engvall is a much bigger size, but would he be a better comparison to a Michael Grabner or an Anthony Beauvillier? I thought he was more on the lines of a Michael Grabner. Phil, what do you think? I like the Carter Verhaeghe because I have watched Carter in Bridgeport a lot of those times, so I know exactly who you're talking about. For Islander fans who never got down to Bridgeport, who was the closest Islander?
Grabner. I mean, but it's it's funny to compare him to these players though, because when you have a guy who's 6'5" and has that kind of range,
exactly,
stylistically they're going to appear to be different. But just in terms of
the role.
Yeah. I guess you could you can slap that Grabner title on him if you'd like.
Okay. Gary, what were your thoughts of Pierre in his first game?
Yeah, well, since I was there,
That's why I'm asking.
there was just some subtleties that I saw in his play. And again, as you all were, saying, being buried, if you will, in a third line, fourth line situation that Engvall's been in because of just all the talent that's on Toronto's lineup. This is going to be a perfect opportunity for him to get a 17, 18 minute a game night, night in and night out. He's going to get his opportunities. For a guy that just stepped in and had maybe one and a half practices with the team, he looked like an absolute seamless fit. I mean, obviously didn't get on the score sheet, but you can see. I saw instant chemistry between Bo and Pierre right away. They felt very comfortable. And when you're watching them before faceoffs and they're sitting and talking, you can see that that Bo's like kind of like encouraging him, and the speed is definitely noticeable. I mean, I knew he had good legs on him, but seeing him live and paying attention to him the way you do on your when you're following your own team, I see a lot of great things about this kid. I really do. Listening to the post game interviews, he feels very comfortable here. I think it's and it's those little deals, the deals that you don't think are going to amount to anything, and hopefully that in 10 games that they'll shut up a lot of fans, and by what Pierre can do in these next couple of weeks. So yeah, a lot of people in my section were very shared the same feelings as we were talking. They were very, very pleased with his play, and I think he's going to be a great fit.
Beautiful. All right, so we're going to move on real quick. We're going to take a look at the rest of the trade deadline recaps here, just some of the major ones, and then what we're going to do is, we're going to take all four of us. We're going to take a big step back. We're going to take a look at the Eastern Conference, and we're going to just give our thoughts, some of our hopes for the next, 18, 19 games for the Islanders, 17. Maybe we'll discuss playoffs for a little bit, but we're going to go over some of the trade recaps, and then we're going to talk about each team, spontaneously. Go ahead, Phil. Did you have something? Oh, okay. Obviously, the Rangers with Vladimir Tarasenko. I'll tell you guys right now, St. Louis, they wanted an unconditional first-round pick. They wanted Anthony Beauvillier. They wanted Atu Ratu. And one of the combinations of Samuel Bolduc and or Scott Mayfield. So the Islanders said no to Tarasenko. Could they revisit that in the offseason? Maybe. I don't think they have to now with Engvall, but that's what happened with Tarasenko. I know a lot of people had asked, what happened with the Islanders? That's what happened. A lot was asked for, and Lou had said no. And you're going to see that theme with Samuel Bolduc quite a bit, folks. There are reasons why the Islanders couldn't really work out a trade for a defenseman, and Samuel Bolduc was part of that reason. The Islanders just didn't want to trade him away. So, moving on. Toronto acquires Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari. The Rangers picked up Tyler Motte. Boston Bruins acquired Dmitry Orlov and Garnet Hathaway. The Winnipeg Jets acquired former Islander Nino Niederreiter. The Dallas Stars picked up Evgeny Dandinoff and Max Domi. I almost said Ty Domi. Vegas acquired Ivan Barbashev. The New Jersey Devils picked up Timo Meier. Tampa Bay gave a boatload of picks to Tanner Jana from the Predators. Toronto again was busy with Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty. Carolina picked up Jesse Pula-Harvey. Washington picked up Rasmus Sandin. Minnesota picked up Marcus Johansson. We just talked about the Islanders. Again, Toronto busy picking up Luke Shen. Edmonton Oilers picking up Matthias Ekholm. The Nashville Predators picked up Tyson Berry. Minnesota acquired Gustav Nyquist. And last but not least, the Rangers picked up Patrick Kane. Gentlemen, that's quite a list. Let's stick with the Eastern Conference here. Boston's on a magical run here, probably for the best record ever in the NHL. They pick up a couple of players in Orlov, like Orlov, and they're fitting in seamlessly. They just ripped apart the Rangers tonight or this afternoon, 4-1, which makes us all happy. But getting to the Leafs in Tampa, Randy,
Yep.
since you are still you follow Calgary with your heart as well, but you're also a Leafs fan.
Yep.
Do the Leafs have enough to take out Tampa to face Boston?
No, and I discussed this with you earlier.
I
We
know that.
discussed this at Will, and the answer is no. And the main reason why the answer is no is because I do not trust Samsonov. Oh, by the way, one other player that you forgot that Boston acquired at the draft was Tyler Bertuzzi.
Tyler Bertuzzi.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Tyler Bertuzzi. My
Yep.
apologies, yes.
Well, that's okay. That's why we're here for this.
Big assist in today's win for Boston. too.
That's right. Yes.
He's
So,
a-
all right, so you don't think with all that additions, you don't think they can beat Tampa out?
No.
Okay. Phil, what about you? You think the Leafs have a shot at beating Tampa?
I do. And part of it is because I think you reach a certain point with a group where you've been to 3 straight Stanley Cups and maybe you just run out of gas. And I think that right now, with the way Tampa's playing, they've pretty much punted any opportunity to get home ice. And home ice matters in the playoffs. I share Randy's concern for the Leafs with regard to their goaltending. The other concern, I guess, you might have with the Leafs is the fact that they've brought in so many players that you just wonder how that's going to work chemistry-wise, right? Bringing in 3 new defensemen is significant, in order for them to kind of get caught up and understand scheme. They brought in a couple new forwards, but I thought Ryan O'Reilly was a fantastic pickup. I thought he brings everything that particular group needs. And Vasilevsky's he's looked very ordinary this year. You never want to write him off because in the playoffs he becomes a different animal. But if they don't figure that out, they might be a quick out.
I hope you're right.
That'll be a celebration all in its own. No, that would be a
yes.
celebration all in its own.
And especially the fact, just to add on to that, in
ahead.
today's game against Buffalo in the third period, Tampa basically benched Stamkos, Kucherov, and I think Braden Point. John Cooper benched all 3 of them and basically called them to the carpet. So that's a big thing. They've lost 5 out of 6 right now, and they really need basically a checkup from the neck up. If they have any shot at all with Toronto. And yes, chemistry is a huge thing. We've seen it for years. We've seen how teams can just throw players all together and think everything's going to be hunky-dory. 1997 Rangers, 1988 Rangers. Yeah, we know. But, it can happen. It does happen at times, but I don't know. That's, a lot of picks, and Boston did the same thing. But, I really can't see, I think that, that point record is up for grabs. I think Boston's got a real good shot at doing it. But the only Achilles heel, when you think about it, when you look at a lot of Boston's games, the goaltending numbers are tremendous, but they're not really seeing a lot of pucks. They're not seeing
not. No.
And that's going to be a big thing. Playoff hockey is completely different. And we know, it not necessarily is an offensive juggernaut in the playoffs, but I'm not 100% sold on the Bruins. And, will they fall into that, President's Trophy first round exit kind of routine? And, I'm not ruling it out. I'm really not, because, they haven't shown me that they're a playoff team.
Well, let's move over to the Metro here for a minute, and we'll get back to Boston in a few minutes. Gentlemen, at this point, I, we I've been hearing a lot of Islander fans worried about playing Boston in the first round, or we're going to have Boston or Carolina in the first round. I don't think that's a guarantee between Carolina and the Devils. Phil and I both do percentages. We do the point pace in the standings all the time. And folks, we'll tell you right off the bat, if things continue the way they are, Carolina and the Devils will not be able to determine first place until like games 78, 79, 80, 81. Like you're literally going to have to strap yourselves in, Devils fans and Carolina fans, all the way to the end, because you're not going to have a definitive winner unless something happens to that team and they collapse. Phil, give me your thoughts. Who's winning this division and how close is it really going to be?
I ultimately think Carolina does pull it out, but it is going to be close, right? If listen, if you're an Islander fan, there's no matchup that you'd rather have than the Devils in round one. And they do have some guys. I mean, people keep saying, oh, they're so inexperienced and they're going to get a lesson taught to them by whoever they play. I think that's a bit overstated. They've got guys like Hamilton who've been to conference finals. They've got, they brought in Palat, who is not having a great year, and a lot of that is due to injury, but he's a two-time Cup champion, and he's been there 3 times. Marino has been on, in some playoff activity with the Penguins. I think there's a handful of other guys who've been there. So, yeah, a lot of their key guys like Bratt and Hughes, they haven't had their beaks wet to that. I just think that with the style of hockey that we're playing right now, I think we could frustrate them. I do. I think that that's a team that we could maybe get under their skin a little bit, take them a little bit outside their comfort zone, and ultimately grind them down, if that makes sense. That
Absolutely.
would be
a bubble
matchup. Yeah. Boston, I mean, it's funny. Boston made the trades. They acquired the pieces that the Rangers should have acquired to me. I don't mind the Tarasenko trade, but to me, if you're the Rangers and Dmitry Orlov is on the market and you have questionable D, especially from your D4 and down, because I think Trouba, I think Miller's okay, but I think Trouba absolutely kills that pair, and I think their bottom pair is borderline unplayable in a playoff series with Mikkola and Schneider. Orlov would have been perfect for them. I just think that they got caught up in what was going on with Patrick Kane, who, he's fine, but I don't think he's the piece that they necessarily needed here. I thought they needed a Orlov type addition because I just didn't understand the problem area that Kane was fixing for them.
So let's do a nice fun hypothetical here. Devils and Rangers in the first round. Gary, who are you picking?
No.
Put me on the spot.
Absolutely.
Just adding on to what Phil said, I think, the Devils have experience and they've had the better of the Rangers this year, but I still go back to that chemistry question. I don't, unless something radically changes, the third pair for the Rangers is the big problem here. You can do well on the power play, you can do well with your top 2 lines, but as we said last year, the kid line made the Rangers successful in their run to the Final Four. If they don't produce like they produced last year, that's going to be a big problem, because if you can neutralize your top 6, they're mortal. They're extremely mortal. And maybe I guess I'm going to say the Devils. I'm just going to go on. And it's not anti-Ranger. I just think the Devils are having a special year, and I think they'll do better.
Randy,
give me your thoughts real quick. Devils or Rangers?
I was hoping you'd skip me on this one because
Heck no.
as I'm probably going to be the only one, and the only reason why I lean towards the Rangers is because they have that immortal guy back in net.
Shesterkin?
Yeah,
Fair deal.
he's. I like the Islanders because the Devils because I like their forwards. I think the Devils have. I mean, let's face facts. The Rangers might have a better top six, but overall, I like the Jersey's Devils forwards. I like the Devils' speed. I think the Devils are a far faster team than the Rangers are, but I do like Suzerkin. I think it will probably go 7 games either way, and really, I think you could throw a coin up.
I'd be enjoying that.
And I know it'll be the series that I'm going to be watching the most probably is the Devils and the Rangers, just because I think it'll be the most heated one.
Phil, I'm gonna leave you off the hook here. You and I both know there's like at least 20 games left. Anything can happen, especially down the stretch. But you know, Devils and Rangers right now. I'll say it, I have the Devils beating the Rangers. I'm not impressed with their pickups. Tarasenko, yes, can score the goals, but he has problems defensively, which is not going to help Sisurkin in the long run. Like Randy said, if the Devils can run with them for 7 games, does Patrick Kane find the fountain of youth? Is this just the popular, are the ghosts of hockey's past here coming to the Rangers against a very young Devils team? What do you have? Do you have them? Do you have the Devils, Rangers? Who do you have right now?
I'm with Randy just because of the goaltending piece. I don't love Vanacek. I don't love Vanacek, and that's the only reason why I would go with Rangers over Devils. I think on paper, I disagree. I think the Devils' top 6 is better. If you just like line it up person by person, I like Hughes a lot better than I like Zibanejad. I like Nico a heck of a lot better than I like Vincent Trocheck. I mean, that for me is a huge part of it. I think, you look at the wings at that point, Timo Meier at this stage is probably better than Artemi Panarin. Bratt is better than Patrick Kane. They've got real young, good elite pieces. I think their undoing could potentially be their goaltending, though. It'll be a fascinating series that could go either way, though. But like you mentioned, Paul, I mean, that's not written in stone yet, that is
Nope.
going to be a series that happens. And one thing I'll point out, I mean, since I've started tracking the point percentages, there have been 3 instances in where we could have gotten help from the Rangers. We could have gotten help from the Rangers against the Capitals, the Red Wings, and the Senators. And they went 0-3 in those games. 5 out of their next 6 games are going to be games in which they can help the Islanders, right? They've got, I think, they're playing Montreal in 4 days from now, if I'm not mistaken. And then they have, and again, I don't know the order of it, but they've got the Penguins 3 times, they've got the Capitals, and they've got the Sabres. If they want to continue this trend of losing in regulation to all the teams that the Islanders would benefit from them beating, they're going to find themselves in a wild card race.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Yes, they are.
you're probably right.
And Phil, you
Go
hold
ahead.
on, Randy. Phil, you and I are going to continue on this point pace trend because I've been doing this now for over a decade with the point pace. I've always gone with the percentages and not just the standard points. The Pittsburgh Penguins, as of this conversation, I know they're losing at this moment, but they're on pace for 95 points.
They lost already.
They lost. Okay, so now they're down to 94 points. Okay, the Penguins this year have not been any higher than 96 points. And with the additions that they made this season at the trade deadline, I can't see the Penguins getting any higher than 96, 97. If they get lucky again, I could see them regressing a little bit. Whereas you've had the Islanders, since Bo Horvat, the Islanders have gone 7-3-3 for a 107-point pace. And gentlemen, I have brought this up before. The defenseman, when the defense scores 3 points or more in a single game, the Islanders are 18-5-4. When the defense scores 3 points or more, the Islanders are 18-5-4. Since Bo Horvat has joined this team, the Islanders' defense have scored 3 times in 8 out of the 13 games that Bo Horvat has been here. The Islanders are currently on a 107-point pace. Pittsburgh has never even touched that. And the Islanders don't have Matthew Barzal back. They don't have J.G. Pajot back. I can see the Penguins coasting their way for the rest of the season, and the Islanders taking that first wild card spot if they can continue this trend. And whereas the Penguins are going to have to pray Buffalo doesn't get hot again, because I think Buffalo could still upset the Penguins. But again, like Phil had just said, if the Rangers find a way to collapse and the Islanders continue to do this well, we're in for some drama the final 15 games here. So the Islanders are not dead by any stretch of the imagination, and we're still missing 2 players. So I'm looking forward to seeing where the Islanders land, because I agree with Phil. I don't think the Islanders are just going to finish with the second wild card spot and face Boston in the first round. There's still too much time, in this season. Yeah, there's just too many games. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Gary, I'm going to ask you this question from a hockey standpoint. And then we'll finish this up on the Eastern Conference here. Who would you rather see in the first round? Boston against Buffalo or Boston against Pittsburgh?
If I'm looking at it from what standpoint? I'm looking at it from
a hockey fan.
A hockey fan?
Just from a hockey fan.
I would like. I think Boston Pittsburgh would be a little bit. I don't know. To me, it's old against old. I really would like to see Buffalo.
Okay.
I would like. Again, I love. I'm obviously Tage Thompson's having a season. A life-altering season.
Sure.
We all knew the kid had talent, but I mean, it's off the chart ridiculous. And with power and the young guys on defense, it's an exciting team. I mean, unfortunately, you got a 41-year-old goaltender that's playing out of his mind at times, and has kept them in. But as a fan, for a fan base, I mean, they've struggled so many years and been through so much. I think it would be exciting, for that fan base to finally get back in the playoffs and enjoy that run. Again, whoever's going to play Boston's going to have their hands completely full. Because there's very little bit wrong with the Boston game, but you got to find a way to do something. But I think I would enjoy. As a fan, I would enjoy the Buffalo series a lot more.
Randy, go ahead. Who do you want? Do you want Buffalo or do you want Pittsburgh going up against Boston?
The last thing, Buffalo.
Okay.
I'm tired of seeing Sidney Crosby year after year. I would love it. I want to see Tage Thompson put the fear of into Boston.
Okay.
the guy's the best thing that's happened to Boston since that Russian. What's his name? Mogilny.
Mogilny. Yes.
But he literally is. But his shot reminds me of Alexander's one-timer. He doesn't have the speed, of course, of the Russian, but he certainly has the one-timer off a power play setup by far. Oh, yeah.
Phil, give me your thoughts. What would you like to see?
I want to see Ottawa. That's what.
Oh, good answer.
Well, that's a good answer.
I want to see Ottawa. And listen, I've been looking over the past couple of weeks. Everyone was excited about the fact that Ottawa swept Detroit at the beginning of this week. And I kept telling people, I said, listen, you want to split there. You don't want Ottawa to win both games.
You don't want Ottawa to split.
I'm like, Detroit is not a threat. I have watched enough Detroit Red Wings hockey to know that they are just simply not a good team. They will be at some point, but those young guys aren't ready. And, some of their vets are on the older side. I'm like, the last thing anyone in this playoff race needs is a white-hot Ottawa Senators. And then they added Chychrun to that group.
Yep.
And
by the way, he's got 2 points for Ottawa. Take out his first goal.
He got his first goal, yeah.
They're up 4-2 right now on Columbus late in the second.
Yeah, I mean, they'll beat Columbus. They'll probably beat Chicago. Their schedule is going to get very, very tough after that Chicago game. And they have a lot of road games. They have a West Coast trip where they're going to see Calgary, Edmonton. They've still got Colorado. They're going to play a couple of the other teams in the mix over there. But they've got a good mix of veterans in there too, with Giroux and Brassard, with elite young talent. Their goaltending ultimately is not going to hold up, I don't think. But if there's a team I would love to see in the playoffs this year, it's Ottawa, and I think they deserve it.
See, he's becoming a converted Canadian.
Well,
Playing from our fellow Canadian teams. I like this.
I mean, if I just have to give a ranking of, from the Islanders standpoint, the teams who you're worried most about in passing them, right? Initially, it was Washington, right? You were just concerned as to whether or not the Islanders were going to be able to keep pace. And I know Washington won tonight, but the Sharks just dismantled their whole team. So I'm not going to read too much into that. But if I had to rank it, I would say the team you're obviously most concerned about is probably Buffalo, just given the amount of games they have in hand. But after that, I would say it's Ottawa and then Florida.
Oh.
Florida needs to get healthy quickly.
I think they got Barkov back. Their issue is they've just been trading wins for losses. If you look at their last 8-9 games, it's been win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And they don't have necessarily an easy schedule coming up, and they allow a lot of goals.
That goal is like a yo-yo.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for them, Spencer Knight is in the what do they call it? The rehabilitation program or the player assistance program. Yeah. So it doesn't look like they're going to have him for the rest of the year, which is going to be asking a lot of Bobrovsky, who has a lot of tread on those tires. I don't think they're going to want Alex Line playing too many games for them down the stretch, but they're going to find themselves. I don't think they're going to be in the picture come the last 2 weeks of the season.
I don't think so either.
Could we? Well, let's. I am going to play devil's advocate here. I'm going to go. I would like to see Pittsburgh go up against Boston because I really want to see how the veterans on that team, if they can get into Linus Ullmark's head during the playoffs. Granted, Boston's defense is going to be top-notch and ready for Pittsburgh's offense. But if there's a team that could rattle a goaltender, it's Pittsburgh. I don't think Ottawa is going to be that intimidating, but you still have Crosby, you still have Malkin, you still have that, Gensel. You have that potential to where if, a couple of fluky goals here by Ullmark, you try to get into his head here. I'm not going to say Pittsburgh's going to make a series out of it, but, I think they'd have a better chance of at least winning more than one game because I'm not giving, as much as I've enjoyed Ottawa, I don't have them making the playoffs.
Yeah, you can't deny what Pittsburgh is, Paul. But as Randy said, you don't want. I'm tired of seeing Pittsburgh. I'm really getting tired of it. It's getting ill.
Yeah, it is.
The first thing they said on Hockey Night before we came on the air, they were talking. Oh, Sidney Crosby hasn't missed the playoffs since his rookie season. I'm like, shut up. I'm tired of hearing about that.
Thank you, Gary. That's perfect.
That works. All right, so real quick, Western Conference. Phil, I know you got to leave soon, so we're going to hand this over to you. What did the Western Conference do?
I need to jog my memory over here, but
I know they sold most of their farm over to the Eastern Conference here. Like, the Eastern Conference just got jacked up, but no one helped out Colorado. Lars Eller is not an improvement over Nazem Kadri. Vancouver basically, sold off. Anaheim hasn't been non-existent. Calgary didn't do anything. We'll get to Randy later on, but who do you like coming out of the West right now? Is it Edmonton? Is it Dallas?
Well, okay. I mean, Edmonton, thank you for refreshing my memory. Edmonton made the most significant acquisition in Ekholm. He's exactly what they needed. They needed a horse back there. And I think he's going to provide, just good stability to their blue line. I mean, their goaltending is still such a mess. I think the favorite is Colorado, though. I do.
You still think so?
I still think the favorite is Colorado. I think when it comes down to it, those guys have the experience. They've got. They're going to get help back. I think Landeskog will come back at some point. They're playing without McCarr right now. McCarr's going to come back, so I don't know that anyone's necessarily going to match up with them.
McCarr played today.
Oh, did he play tonight?
Yes, he did play tonight.
Okay. After Colorado, I just don't love any of those teams.
Wild card.
I don't know. Dallas has come. They've unraveled these past couple weeks, which is somewhat surprising because they were playing with structure and they were scoring a lot. And Ottinger is great, and you never want to count out Ottinger.
What about Vegas?
I don't like him. I don't know. I just don't.
Never
did.
Man.
What about Minnesota?
Minnesota's
made a lot of moves too.
My problem with on the margins, I guess you could say. My issue with Minnesota mainly is I like that they play a very buttoned up type of game and they suppress chances. I thought the Islanders did a really good job of breaking through. We just couldn't finish because Gustafsson was a beast in that game. We could have hung 3 or 4 on an ordinary goaltender that night, but he was just that hot. My issue with Minnesota is when it comes down to it, they're a one-line team. And if you're able to neutralize and take Kaprizov out of the series, they're done. And someone's going to do it. So I don't think you could win 3 rounds that way is my issue with Minnesota. Similar to the Islanders in some ways, only I think the Islanders, when healthy, have more balance throughout the lineup, right? You don't have the Brock Nelson behind Matt Barzal on Minnesota. And now you don't have, the Bo Horvat in there as well. Right. That's my take on them.
Okay. Randy, real quick on the Western Conference here. Give me your thoughts on LA.
Well,
LA's not really being talked about that much, except for the fact that they traded Jonathan Quick at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I still don't like LA's defense. I'm sorry. They're going to score their share of goals, but their defense is now. Their defense might not have been as bad because of the goaltending. They definitely upgraded on the goaltending. The problem that they're going to have is they don't have Draisaitl and McDavid are going to tear them to pieces, and that's probably going to be the matchup. LA and Edmonton in the first round. LA doesn't have a prayer.
Okay. So are we kind of like in an agreement here? We're looking at like maybe Edmonton and Colorado for conference finals?
That's my pick.
Okay. Phil?
I'm with Randy on that.
Okay. Yeah. See how easy that is with the Western Conference, folks? That's what happens when you don't make any trades.
Well, it's also what happens when you bring in people that know what they're talking about.
Well done. All right, listen. We got about 8 more minutes left. Phil, we're going to give the stage to you here. Give us your thoughts. Next 17 games on the Islanders. What are you looking for? If you have any expectations whatsoever, give us your thoughts and your feelings on the Islanders for the rest of the season.
Well, it's going to take a minimum. I think they have to win at least 10 games. 10-7 is probably going to be the benchmark here. That should do it. You don't want to play with fire, though. So if you could go 11-6, that would be really nice.
Okay.
Again, they're in a stretch of games right here where if you can beat Buffalo on Tuesday, and hopefully Edmonton helps us out on Monday, right? So we're going to be getting a Buffalo team that's going to be traveling, and it's the last leg of a 3-4 for them. We need to be able to take advantage of that. If we could go in and then sweep the Penguins, right? You could even lose that Washington game after that. And then you're going on the road to the West Coast, which, you never want to take any games for granted, especially when you're changing time zones. But the Ducks and Sharks haven't really been putting up much resistance. I think if you can get 11 wins, like you mentioned with the pacing, that might be good enough for the 7th spot. I don't know if, Paul, you have any idea as to when we can expect Pajot back. I think he'd be a huge help if we can insert Pajot and get rid of Otto, send him back to Bridgeport. I think
I'm hearing there's a possibility for Tuesday.
That would be pretty big. That'd be big. I know Barzal's going to be a little bit of time.
Yeah, exactly. But Pajot could be available Tuesday.
Yeah, and the thing with it being an upper body injury versus lower body injury, I mean, the fact that he's getting all this rest should help him, right? Palmieri, we all know, shot to the head. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out exactly what that particular upper body injury was. But his body being able to sit for those 27 games, I mean, he's been shot out of a cannon ever since he's come back, and he's been a huge part. I mean, Brock Nelson said it. He's been a huge part in getting that line going and creating the scoring that they need, especially now with Barzal out. So hopefully we could see Pageau do that. And they're playing with structure. They're playing, the first 55, 60 games this season, it was ugly for the most part. They were hemorrhaging chances. They weren't making it easy on their goaltenders, right? I mean, you look at Sorokin and Varlamov's numbers, and then you imagine what they would look like in Boston, and they'd both be in Ullmark territory, to be honest. So
yes, they would.
They're playing a game that can win series. This is how you need to play if you want to win playoff series. And getting Pageau back is going to help. Getting Barzal back is also going to help. And hopefully we could get that 7 spot and be a scary team.
Beautiful. Where can they find you?
Just at
on
Twitter.
social media.
Phil's Facts, exactly how it's spelled over here in the header. So just at Phil's Facts, you could find me there. That's where I post all my various thoughts, Islanders ideas, quick takes, hot takes sometimes, and oftentimes the wrong takes, as we all do. We stumble on the wrong takes sometimes. I'll own up to it. I'm not always right. Very often I'm wrong, and I'll own up to when that is the case.
Welcome to the club.
No, Paul can relate that you're always wrong. Oh,
yes.
That.
Thanks for having me
Thanks,
on, though.
Randy.
I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, man.
Awesome
Anytime.
meeting you.
Fun.
Nice meeting you guys. Take care.
Okay. And that was Phil's Facts from Twitter. Phil and I will usually talking on Twitter every once in a while. So great having him on. We thank him for coming on. Gentlemen, I wanted to bring up one more time with the trade deadline. The impact with Bo Horvat that he had and with the defenseman scoring. There was one issue that people in general had with the Islanders not picking up another defenseman. Again, Samuel Bolduc was part of that, but a very big catalyst in, shall we call, the offensive defenseman revival in the last 13 games since Bo Horvat has been here. Noah Dobson has racked up 9 points.
Yep.
9 points. And guess who's second in scoring amongst defensemen?
Aho.
Very good.
Yeah,
Sebastian Aho.
6 or 7?
He's got 6.
Yeah. Okay.
He's got 6 in 13 games. Gentlemen, he's almost on a 40-point pace right now.
We knock him. We knock him, obviously, because not a knock because of size, but obviously size is a deterrent for him. But I have been very, very impressed. And again, watching it, live as opposed to watching, on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot. I see a lot more, and Claire doesn't like sometimes that I'm not, screaming, "Let's go Islanders," because I'm laser focused, especially when I'm watching the defenseman. And I've watched Aho, especially the last 3 or 4 games. And when you're a size challenged defenseman, you've got to be positional. I won't call it perfect, but near perfect. And the last 5 or 6 games, Aho has been just that. I haven't lodged a complaint on him at all, because especially when he's playing against some of these bigger forwards, he has been in the right position at the right time and has done a great job. And and his speed has been definitely a factor in creating some of these goals for this team. And we never used the word speed when you're talking about Sebastian Aho lately, but I'd say in the last 10 games it's come up. And I was knocking him a lot, between games like 20 and 40 this season. But I've
rightfully
been very impressed.
Have you guys ever noticed how Horvat plays when he has the puck? You look at him and watch him play. The first thing he does is look at the defenseman.
Yep.
That's the first thing he does. He'll look at the defenseman to see if they're open, because he comes from a system in Vancouver where they let the defense shoot the puck on the power play. and then they go grab the puck, and that's why the defenses come up. Is because Horvat brings the defense more involved.
Well, did you see that? Oh, Paul, you watched the game. Did you see? I mean, that power play goal, which ended up being Palmieri's and not Dobson's, but the passing back and forth.
Yeah,
those 3 or 4 passes, bing, 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 and I was like, wow. I was like, where the hell has this been all year? McLean, where have you been?
Yes.
You know, that
Well,
was
Horvat,
that was
where
brilliant.
Yes.
That's Bo Horvat.
It's Bo's presence, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm going to
go ahead.
Give me one moment here, guys. I'm going to respectfully disagree with Brush here, just for the moment, and and we're having a serious moment here.
Well, that's normal.
Brush says, no, hold on now. I'm trying to be serious. Stop it. His trade value could go up a little bit, whether it's over the summer draft or whatnot. To a degree, I understand where he's coming from, but I still believe Samuel Bolduc is going to start the season as the 7th defenseman, and Aho is going to remain the 6th defenseman to give Samuel Bolduc that time to grow and develop. And if Mayfield does come back, you're going to have that nice pair of either Aho and Mayfield or Aho and Dobson. Keep those pairing together to let Bolduc learn what learn what he has to do to be an NHL regular for the entire season.
Yeah, and
because by then,
No, I'm just saying you always use that, and we always use that word raw. And
yes,
he's still got the rawness of him, and you see it in Bridgeport too. I mean, he's been comfortable and doing quite well, but
and in this case, go ahead.
And Brush just wrote about don't forget about Wotherspoon. Well, I love his spelling; it sucks.
It's horrible.
But I mean, I mean, Wotherspoon has been, I'm bummed that he's been sitting, up here for the last 10 games, but again, it's not on fault of his, because I really think he's done well up here. I have not been embarrassed by any of his games.
Aho, is he a UFA?
No, and that's where I was going with this. He's got one more season left.
One more year.
Okay.
But if he does really well, especially next season, you can let him go through the UFA. Let him go, get himself another contract. You still have Bolduc ready to go, and you could use Hutton as a 7th defenseman at some point. So
or Wotherspoon, right?
Or Wotherspoon, yeah. So I agree. I know where Brush is going with that. I think he's a year early, but if anything, I think Sebastian Aho, because of the offense he's now producing with this team, with Bo Horvat here, he may have been extending his Islander career a little bit longer. But again, I want to
just the plain simple fact that Paul has to actually be in somewhat of an agreement with Brush right now.
All right,
it's going on. It's going on Academy Award acting, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
well, I'm so disappointed in you, Paul.
I know.
I'm so disappointed in you.
I know. So,
but
go ahead, Randy.
No, I think the player that everyone needs to remember, and nobody's brought up in this broadcast today, is Parise. How many of you guys expected Parise to be in double figures with goals?
Oh, me. Are we talking?
We both
15 goals. Oh yeah,
he's got 16 now.
He's got 16.
Yeah. 16.
I never expected 16. To me, I never expected that at all.
That's why you're a Flames fan.
Yeah, no.
Stay on the other side there.
No.
Yeah, 20's not out of the question.
Within there, within 5 feet.
No, 20 is not out of the question.
I just wish and pray that, and most of them do, but just everybody has that Energizer Bunny attitude that Zach has.
Yeah.
I mean, they said he's 84th all time in goal scoring now. I mean, do you really, there is a chance that, 10 or 15 years from now, Zach Parise might be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Join his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a great testament, to the player that he is. And he's always been, a 100% effort guy. And those things, I'm sure they've rubbed off on this locker room. And again, another person we didn't talk about who got an assist today and just impresses the living hell out of me every time I'm at the arena watching a game is Hudson Fashion.
I like him.
Talk about him. Go for it.
Out of nowhere. I mean, we know, a career AHL guy, he has talent. He's, good in the room and all that. But he's another one that just never freaking stops.
Reminds me of
pushing himself. He's always pushing to get a play working. And, that feeds off, and all these things happen. I mean, Fashion's always been good since he's been up. But again, ever since Bo came here, it seems like the whole locker room has gone up a level.
A guy that he reminds me of is a Kenny Lensman.
The Rat.
And it's because Fashion can get under people's skin.
Yep.
And he's might not be as talented as Lensman, but he reminds me of Lensman. And maybe it's because he's not as talented. Maybe nobody's given him a chance before.
Right.
Maybe if they give him the chance, maybe he can become a Kenny Lensman. But he sure reminds me of him.
Gentlemen, you also have to remember here where he started off. He was in Buffalo during those bad years. Those were the expansion Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah.
He was just getting the ice time just to get the ice time. That's one of the best developments other than the American Hockey League. And then he's in Arizona. And he ended up being, I believe he was a captain last year.
He was the captain of the
Roadrunners.
Thunderbirds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this has been nothing but a big time development year. And he very much could be a late bloomer and a steal here for the Islanders because he's now found his niche with this team. And there's more to him. And that's what Gary is preaching here at this moment. There's a lot from this kid, a lot of energy, and there's more to him. I don't think there's, I don't think the potential has been completely tapped on this kid. So I have enjoyed, and we'll get into this as the season wears on, when we do like our season finale.
I
A lot of players stepping up.
I look
A
at
lot
my
of players
jersey
stepping
here with that number. I'm trying to get it in here. That number
Yeah,
17.
17. Yes.
Play like Wendell.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to get an argument out of Wendell. Paul knows that's
Yes.
the emotional part of me. It's Wendell.
Yeah, exactly. There were many. There are not many Wendell Clark jerseys, like this. But I was honored to make sure I got one, and he actually thanked me.
He's one of the most classiest people ever.
Yep.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Nope, I was done.
Okay. Yeah, we're nearing the end of the show here. Normally we do water cooler talk here for everyone. We don't have a lot of people here, so we'll take any more questions, comments, concerns real quick. We're going to cut Brush off because he's just gotten far too much exposure tonight.
Really? Jesus.
Gary, give me your thoughts and expectations. What are you looking for the next 17 games?
Well, there was a stat that I actually watched the post game when I got home.
Mm-hmm.
And the Islanders right now, even though they've played more games than any other team, they only have 7 of their 18 games against teams that are currently in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that was the lowest. I think Buffalo has 13 of 21. So the benefit of that, especially like you said, you got the West Coast trip, you're playing, an Anaheim team and a San Jose team that are really struggling right now, and the Kings always give the Islanders fits. If you can, you can get a break and get a 3-0 road trip off that, with a bunch of the games that are coming, towards the end of the season against teams that are lower than you in the standings. You've got to pull this off. I mean, these are, it's a potential 16-point stretch for those 4 games that we had, which the first one was today, with Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Washington. You come out of that, those 4 games with at least 6 points, and that's the pace they're on, that 107-point pace that you were saying earlier, Paul. They keep that pace going.
Right.
They're really putting themselves into a great scenario. And 15 games ago when they were struggling and having those horrible third periods, back of your mind, you had, as an Islander fan, you're saying to yourself, "Are we gonna do this again?"
Yeah.
And things have worked around. Things have changed. In the psyche of this, and you're seeing it. You're seeing it with the fans. Obviously, you still get the crap that goes on some of these social media stuff, which really makes me want to hurl. But looking at it from our standpoint, from people here that got some knowledge of the game that Paul and Randy and I have, I really feel if they come out, we go, after the Washington game next Saturday, if we've got 6 of 8 points from these 4 games, I really, really honestly think I'm going to have to spend some money for playoff tickets.
Well, I think so too.
Go ahead, Randy.
Good. You want to split the bill with me?
No, that's okay. If you'll pay for my plane ticket, I will.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Yeah, that was it.
I think the key point here is if they can cut Gary 5 shots down a game, you can get a lot more rest to Sorokin, and he'll be a lot more rested going into the playoffs.
I like that idea.
And the way that they can do that is bring back the system that they're playing right now. And the reason why they're successful is because they're playing the system they have to play to win.
Did you talk to Joe before the show?
I don't like Joe, so why would I talk?
I know we don't like Joe, but all right, damn it. This is the second person I really don't want to give credit to. Joe is very much into I believe it's the 1-2-2 trap.
Yeah,
or the 2-1-2 trap.
Yeah.
That's what Barry Trotz did last year.
And I hate that trap because I hate to say it. It's the most boringest hockey in the world to watch.
But it's so effective, and that's what these Islanders were very good with. And that's what the Islanders were good with, yes.
Yeah, just
if
don't
the
tell
Islanders,
Paul Bissonnette that.
I know. If the Islanders can maintain those leads and go into that trap for a little while longer, like they did with Barry Trotz last year, that's how you're going to preserve Semyon Varlamov and Ilya Sorokin heading into the playoffs. Big time. No question, Randy. Keep their shots down. Rest up Sorokin. There's no doubt about it.
I think they can do it.
And Varley, especially lately, has some confidence in him.
Yeah.
And I think the team play well in front of him. And from what I'm hearing, Varley is willing to take less money and come back here. He really, really wants to be back here next year.
I'm hearing the same thing, so I'm hearing that too. I can back that up.
Yeah. I would not be uncomfortable with that. I really wouldn't.
No.
But you just like you said, you just gotta, play what got you here. Looking at the past performances, you play what got you here. And that's the format, and Paul Bissonnette may not like, how Islander hockey is quote unquote sucking the life out of the game. You know what? Let it suck the life all it wants. But if they're still standing, I'll take it.
Paul Bissonnette makes my Maple Leaf fans look bad.
I know.
I hate to say this, but the guy's he's pure Maple Leaf, and he makes Maple Leaf fans look bad. But it may be boring and it may be hard to watch, but it's exactly what wins, Gary.
But he did give credit. He actually did give credit when he said, he was talking about he interviewed Horvat. They interviewed Horvat on NHL Network and he basically said that. But he said, but you know what? He goes, if the Islanders play Boston in the first round, he says that sucking the life's going to work. So he did actually give quote unquote credit for it. But
we'll
see.
It will because it will.
We'll see. We'll see.
Folks, as far as I'm concerned, for the next 20 games, if you go onto NHL.com and you click on the standings and you're in the wild card section, click on the division and get yourself into the divisional slot. What you're going to see now at that point are the teams in that, in their regular points standings. What I want you to do is click on the percentage. And what you're going to find is almost the exact same position as the teams are right now. When you get to that 60 mark, the 61, the 62 mark, there isn't much of a difference between the percentages and the actual points.
No, there
If
isn't.
you really wanted to take a look at the standings, now is the time to look at the standings. They are for real. This is where they are.
Yep.
Is anything set in stone? Absolutely not. The Islanders could still finish up with the first wild card spot. They could finish up with the second. The Islanders could play the Devils in the first round. They could play Carolina. They could play Boston. There is still too much hockey to be played
Oh yeah.
for
There is.
anyone to decide or determine where or who the Islanders are going to be playing.
The only position that's determined in the East right now is Toronto and Tampa.
Oh, the first position, absolutely. I was also going to add Boston. Boston, Boston's first in the conference.
Oh yeah,
That's not
Boston's
changing. Yeah.
Well, I meant in the series. The series,
Yes. The
Yeah.
first series is
No, I
about
meant-
the Leafs and
though.
Tampa. Yes.
That's Leafs and Tampa. That's all.
Yeah. The Boston, and congratulations to the Boston Bruins so far. Magical season, no doubt about it. Anything else right now is up for grabs.
Yeah.
You can scoreboard watch all you want. This is the time. This is the season for it. It's the time to get excited. It's the time to rip your hair out or whatever, except for in Randy's case.
We got no hair to rip out. So.
Exactly. Enjoy the playoffs, because in all honesty, folks, when you hit game 62, you're in the playoffs. The playoffs basically start now.
Yeah. I'm gonna enjoy the playoffs this year because I'm not gonna have any heartbreak.
Stop it.
I'm not gonna have to
No.
sit and watch Calgary attempt to win a series. I'm gonna.
So coming up on Isles Talk, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We are still going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the New York Islanders. My goal is to, over the next couple of shows, we're going to celebrate the 70s. We're going to celebrate the 80s. We're going to celebrate the 90s, the 2000s, and even today's club. And what I'm trying to do is that I'm going to get a few guests from each of those decades. Whether it be Islanders, whether it be fans, long season ticket holders, and we're going to reminisce about the last 50 years. And that's going to be my goal. And we are going to talk about the Islanders, of course, for the rest of the season. But we here at Isles Talk, we really want to get into the 50th anniversary of the New York Islanders. It's a big thing for us. It's a big thing all season long. And we hope you join us then. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on. This has been a great show. Randy, where can they find you on social media?
They can find me the fan blogger. I'm the fan blogger. That's it. I'm the fan blogger.
What's your website?
I can't even pronounce it.
Flame Scratch Pad.
Flame Scratch Pad. Yeah.
Attaboy. God almighty. Gary, where can they find you?
I'm getting old.
Yeah, you are old. Yeah, I'll
getting
bust
old.
your chops on this one.
Yeah.
Gary, where can I where can they
Yeah,
find
at Isles Met 63. And I'm also doing stuff for the Booster Club, and we are we survived the trip, Paul and I.
you? We did survive the trip. Yes, we went to that trip on Montreal. It was a fun trip.
Yeah, minus the bus breaking down.
Mine was breaking down.
Oh, you didn't hear
Yes.
this, Randy?
What was
Our,
that?
our bus died 15 miles from Montreal. It literally died.
Yeah, it must have been made by French. No, never mind.
Never mind.
We couldn't get
Never
anybody to
mind.
help us, so all of us ended up having to take Greyhound home the next day. But
Oh, that's funny.
yeah,
Poutine
but
was
we
really
lost,
good, though.
We lost the game in overtime, but we did have a nice night. We had a nice evening out, a nice little restaurant, down the block from our hotel. And Montreal is always a great place to see, for anybody that's not, that's listening that has not had the opportunity.
It's one of the
Montreal
most
is a great city to visit. The Bell Center it's not the Montreal Forum, but you get 21,000 people, and I love the organ. I love the the dual French English commentary. It's a lot of fun. So
it's Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But but we survived. Like I said,
That's all.
hopefully, hopefully we're gonna continue this run as long as we can. And I just think the hair top dog in the upper left hand corner of your screen for allowing me to have my presence on here.
We go 50-50 on this, remember? All right. So don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, follow us on Isles Talk on Facebook. Follow us on Isles Talk on Twitter. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Something I would probably will do later on. Other than covering the draft, other than covering our prospects and whatnot, we're going to do a few more shows just specifically on YouTube. We want to grow the YouTube channel a little bit more. And I'm still working on getting us on iTunes, all the other media podcasts and whatnot. So we'll go from there. And just want to thank you guys and everyone for joining us tonight. Gary, Randy, thank you for coming on once again. And we should be on maybe next week or the week after. And I'm hoping that next show we're going to do a 50th celebration of the 70s. So, Gary, break out your wig. And we will see you guys sometime over the next week or two, where we will be celebrating the Islanders of the 70s.
You don't want to see
the
my
50th anniversary. I know. So once again, everyone, thank you for joining us. Let's go Islanders, and have a good night.
Good night.